Hey, welcome everybody, and thanks for dialing in and taking the time to listen to some of the brilliant minds we have around financial transformation. My name is Frank Mans, and I'm the host of the CFO Talks for DACH, sponsored and produced and given by Workday, right? But it's not around Workday, or it's not around, let's say, me as a person. We started and kicked off this event series a couple of weeks ago, where we thought, or even months ago, sorry for that, where we thought financial transformation is something that people need if they're on that journey to experience firsthand from people who have done it, right? So we are inviting on a monthly basis partners, customers, experts from the field, consultants who have done it with clients, to talk straight through financial transformation, share success stories, share learnings, tips, and best practices. So this month, it's my great pleasure to welcome Matthew McManus, the Head of Finance and Deputy CFO from Kainos. So welcome, Matt.
Thanks, Frank. Nice to be here. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, perfect. So you're in Dublin, right? Or near Dublin?
Belfast, about 100 miles north.
Yes,
So
when I remember
not very
right
far.
the map. Really good. So Matthew, maybe to introduce and kick it off today, right? Maybe just share a little bit about you, about your role, and maybe Kainos, because I think not everybody knows Kainos as a company.
Yeah, sure. So Matthew McManus, Group Head of Finance at Kainos. I've been at Kainos for about 5 years. So who are Kainos? I guess we are a FTSE 250 listed provider of digital services and products to customers all around the globe. And we're delighted to be a full service Workday implementation partner, and one of the leading partners in Europe and in North America as well. So delighted in that respect to be here today to talk a bit about our journey. My role, I guess, in the 5 years I've been here, one of the first big projects that I led was the implementation of Workday Financials. So for the first, say, 30 years of our life, we used one ledger in an old version of Sage. We then had a short period of time when we used NetSuite, and then we moved to Workday Financials about 3.5, almost 4 years ago now. So glad to say that we are advocates of Workday Financials as a system, and delighted to be using it.
Yeah, thanks for that, Matthew. You said Kainos is a professional services company providing services around IT technology and, let's say, change, right? I think this is an industry that, especially through the last 1.5 years, have been changed a lot, right? Because normally, as a consultant, you go to your customer and provide services on site, right? All this, let's say, have changed, right? Even contracting with new clients have been changed. Everything went virtually, right? So, as a professional service company, what do you see as your main challenge right now? Maybe even coming out of this special situation called pandemic and crisis.
Yeah, good question. So, I mean, our first priority is our people. Okay, as a services company, predominantly, you're nothing without your people. So how do we exit the COVID pandemic in a way that works best for our staff and our employees? And so we do our best to regularly listen to what they have to say and what works best for them. I don't think anyone really knows right now what the new working world will look like. I've seen some companies make quite bullish statements, like Goldman Sachs say they will return to the office, other ones saying they won't. You know, we are very much trying to adopt a flexible, we're calling it activity-based working approach, where we're trying to facilitate our employees working in the way that works best for them, and ultimately our customers as well. So I said predominantly our employees first, but equally we have to speak to our customers and hear what they have to say. So a lot of our engagements in the past would have been on site, on customer premises, where they like to have that face-to-face interaction. Clearly the last year and a bit, that has been impossible. Glad to say that we've been able to continue to deliver for our customers remotely. And hopefully that has increased the flexibility of how we interact with customers going forward. but we do have to bear in mind what they want from us going forward. So the challenges are that uncertainty really around how we provide the best possible workplace for our staff, and how we meet our customer demands. So it's interesting, but it's a nice company to be a part of, where we're very much flexible and attentive to what our customers and our employees want, and then react off the back of that.
Yeah, really good. So shifting a little bit gears now, I think customer centricity, employee centricity, I think this is even between Kainos and Workday a common shared value that we share, right? So I think looking into our services organization ourselves, there is a lot of, let's say, common things that we see on our end, right? Shifting gears means let's take a look at the role that finance can play, and especially you as, let's say, the head of finance, right? To support that change, to support things, to make it easier for your customers and, let's say, for your employees as well. Is there anything that is new or let's say fundamentally different than maybe 2 years ago?
In the role of finance? Yeah, so I guess last year, the sort of the early stages of the pandemic really brought home to me just the benefit of using a system or a product like Workday Financials, because how we operate as a team, from the day before we were sent home to the day after, you wouldn't have noticed any change. So my finance team all sat in the same room as me in Belfast, and we have 4 or 5 colleagues in Gdansk in Poland. And I remember speaking to the team just as I left the office and saying, guys, the news doesn't look great. Just bring your laptops home just in case. And from 9 o'clock the next morning, it was business as usual. So in some respects, having that infrastructure in place that Workday brings, you don't really know how big the problems could have been unless you didn't have that in place. I know I'm probably not explaining that particularly well, but I think you'll find that the customers who hadn't started that process of digital transformation or finance transformation, they will have really felt the pain points of being able to try and operate in a different location or a different way than pre-pandemic. So I think that's been really powerful for us, and it's allowed finance in Kainos to support the business growth. Like we are a company that's been growing for the last 10 years, and our role is not to be a blocker. Our role is to facilitate that growth, support it, challenge it at the right times. And if finance were saying, because of the pandemic, we couldn't achieve those things, then it would be a failure on my part. So I'm delighted that we had made that step change with Workday. We had started our finance transformation, and therefore we could support the business in their continued growth in such a strange and uncertain last 12 or 14 months.
I think, and you're right. You don't want to, as a finance organization, you don't want to be the showstopper, the roadblocker, right? And I think for many companies that we're speaking to and speaking with, is missing agility is, let's say, the thing that make things impossible to change and to adopt, right? And for most or for many companies, it is the path to exit, not being agile enough to let's say to change and adopt quickly, right?
I agree. I mean, just how that would apply to Kainos. So, like I say, we've been live with Workday Financials, for almost 4 years, and in that time, in 2015 we listed on the London Stock Exchange, and our business landscape in which we operate has changed. The level of governance has changed. The level of transparency has increased, which are all great things, and we just have to move with the times. But internally, we focus primarily on how we manage the business. Okay, how can we get information to senior management in real time? It's quick, meaningful, insightful, and Workday is actually almost been too good in creating information, because we're able to provide information so quickly to our senior management that they're able to make really real-time changes, and then ends up finance then asks for more and more information. But it's a fantastic problem to have. Of course, I'm I'm joking here, but you have this ability now where you can provide so much information so quickly that you then become very much ingrained in the business, and you're more of a partner as opposed to, you know, a slow, cumbersome team that only can produce information that isn't as meaningful or as insightful as it could be.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is, I think that is something that we see when we talk to companies coming even better and stronger out of this situation, and that they have shifted, let's say, and worked on the role of finance in the company already before. At least they have started that, right? Coming back from, oh, this is the finance guy that is coming out of the basement when I did an error in my expenses, right? To being the strategic partner, the strategic business partners to help me as a business to make better decisions, right? And if I think if you look at the companies who are successful or even have struggled during the pandemic, the more, let's say, advanced they were on that journey already when the pandemic hit, right? They have been, let's say, more stable and more, let's say, successful coming out of this situation, right? But digital or financial transformation is not new, right? It's maybe the speed increased, maybe the let's say the flexibility increased, or let's say make it more relevant during the last 1.5 years or 2 years, right? But it's not a new topic, right? We are trying as a finance organization to move away from acting on the transaction and to be more strategic and the business partner since, I don't know, 20 years or what, right? I learned it in my business school already. I think that's a long time ago, right? Everybody has that goal, right? But what's the trick behind it? And I'm pretty sure that, let's say, just implementing Workday Financials doesn't do the trick at all, right? There is, let's say, more to it. There's maybe a cultural change. There's a skill change that goes along with that, right? So what's your opinion on that? Because I think it's not only a technology.
No, I mean, technology can be a blocker when it doesn't work, right? But when a finance function is working well, they're making the most of technology to help drive better processes and decisions. So the first thing you do when picking a good technology or good technology for your company is to make sure that it's going to be able to be applied to your business in the way that's going to help you be more efficient and more value add, I suppose, across the company. So if I think of how Workday has supported Kainos internally, I mean, we completed our first 2 acquisitions. Since we have started using Workday Financials, we have grown into probably 6, 7 new countries, new territories in that period of time. And from a divisional setup within the company, we have increased divisions in some years, and in other years we have consolidated and decreased. So to me, that is how a financial system is needed to support a growing business or just a changing business. They don't necessarily have to be growing. Ideally, you know, everyone wants to be in a growing company that's doing well, but you know, things like the last 12 months bring that into focus. So the benefit of using a system like Workday Financials is that it allows those things to happen quickly and accurately, so that you're helping the business do what they need to do, and you're not blocking it. So I think that's really, really important. The other thing is when we talk about how finance is structured coming out of the pandemic, I mean, where I want to be spending my time is supporting the business looking forward. Okay, a lot of the transactional stuff that you referred to really doesn't add a whole lot of value, because the longer it takes to complete and close a month end, for instance, each day that goes by means it's a day that's less valuable in terms of sharing that information with your senior management. So we spend a lot of our time now in adaptive insights and adaptive planning, I should say now. And most of the business is spending their time looking forward, forecasting regularly, updating, headcount costs and how scenarios will impact the business and how we can grow and leverage and what that will mean for the bottom line. And that sort of forward-looking mentality is really where you want to be. I see a lot of our customers that I speak to, or prospective customers, or people looking to know more about Workday, and they spend so much time trying to get the numbers to add up that they're not really supporting the business. They're not doing the interesting part of the finance job. They're not doing the value add part of the finance job. I think that's the biggest culture shift in finance transformation. I think you've made it to an extent whenever you're in those conversations with the business. And I think if you're in the conversations of the business where you're just talking about getting numbers to add up, you have a long way to go. So that to me is how I would, I guess, sum up finance transformation in how I see it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I know it from my past because I worked in accounting as well and in FP&A, right? I always had this discussion around this revenue number or this revenue number when it comes to, let's say, who are we as a business, right? You always had 3 different numbers coming out of 3 different systems, and it's a really tough discussion to make, because first of all, we are discussing maybe 50% of the time of the meeting what numbers are correct, right? And not around interpreting and analyzing the numbers, right? So it's really a mind shift for the overall organization to have a solid base where you can make decisions on, right? And even that the system provides you with even more knowledge, maybe machine learning based, right? To guide you through what might be something worth investigating, right?
Yeah, and just on that point, I mean, you talk about revenue numbers not adding up or not being the same. You know, we're very fortunate we're a Workday HCM customer as well. So we used to have these, you know, I say jokes, but it was uncomfortable moments where the HR director might leave the room having quoted a headcount number, and then I walk in and quote a different headcount number, you know, and that was, now you're using it off one system, you know that everything's integrated. And from a services business, from my perspective, you know, 2/3, almost 3/4 of our costs are people related. Therefore, you know, having that all on one platform is very powerful. So I totally get where you're coming from that perspective.
Yeah. There's a question in the chat, and I think the way I'm going to post it to you is a little bit like a hot seat question, right? And I'm doing that with, let's say, the participants from time to time, right? And I think, to be honest, you have given already part of the answer, right? But what's more important, better business partnering or financial efficiency?
So I don't think it's a binary question. I don't think you can really get on to the business partnering until you improve the efficiency. Okay, so I've known that within our team anyway. That's been a pretty powerful example where, you know, 2 years ago we didn't have an FP&A team, right? But the financial efficiencies, as the question suggests, in terms of things like accounts payable, bank transactions, just getting the data in, and those efficiencies have allowed us to, as people have left the team, we have then hired an FP&A team. So our headcount has been pretty flat in the context of our growth over the last 5 years as a wider company. The finance team has really stayed largely flat, somewhere between 20 to 22 people, something like that. And like that's been a really powerful example. Now we've now got FP&A guys who are focusing forward-looking, supporting the business, really facing off to the business, as opposed to people who were just employed to just make the numbers add up. So I think business partnering is ultimately more important, but I don't think you can really do that until you improve the efficiencies. So hopefully that maybe answers the question.
Yeah, I think it goes hand in hand, right? And I think from my perspective, financial efficiency is something that depending on the situation the company that you're working for is in terms of is it low margin, is it high margin, is it, let's say, relevant because the revenue is increasing or decreasing, right? So there's always a story to it, right? But
yeah,
you can't.
I also think just on that point, Frank, I think companies are starting to look at different ways of doing business. I think the last year in particular has forced companies to change and react. And like I know over the last number of years, we have now with services and products. So we've almost got two different businesses internally where we're trying to present meaningful information. You know, it's not one size fits all. So I think you really want to look at when you talk about finance transformation, you want to find a flexible way to present the right level of information to the right people in your company. So if I give our product guys KPIs that are services focused, you know, it's not going to mean anything to them, you know, and it's not going to help them grow the business and vice versa. So I really think those are the sort of things that finance transformation will allow you to do. Once you've done that journey, or once you're through that journey, you can really start to be more of a true partner and not just here's your P&L, you know, see you next month.
Yeah, and maybe a different angle of looking at it is efficiency is not only, let's say, around financials. It's, let's say, something that every process, every department tries to achieve in a company, right? But I think we as finance guys need to be the role model for it. But in terms of scaling it, you need to be the business partner next to the business to really drive that change and that, let's say, behavioral shift. Because I think it's not only looking at what happened on the cost side and of last month, right? It's a behavioral shift that goes with hand in hand from you as efficiency gains and that you can pull off, right?
Yeah, well, we try to call it. We refer to it more as continuous improvement in Kainos. So it's a theme or a mindset, and I think because we've been on that journey in finance, we're now. Some of the guys in my team will spend time working with other teams in Kainos and look at sort of end-to-end process improvement. So not naturally things that finance would get involved with, but because we've done that and we've done a good job of it, it's nice to be able to sort of, you know, spread those learnings across the company. And that's more into wider business or digital transformation as opposed to just finance transformation.
Maybe quickly touch on a different topic. I think we touched, let's say, the process side of the house that you can improve. I really love, let's say, this continuous improvement term and story, right? We have touched the technology, but there is clearly the third thing, and this is the people and the skills you need in finance to make that shift, right? When you look at your team over the, let's say, course of the last couple of years, is there a skill shift, or are there new skills that you think as a finance team at Kainos that you needed and developed over time? Because I think when you try to look into the future, predict things, right, it's a different skill set because it's more business related rather than finance related, because you need to understand the business, right?
Yeah.
So there is, let's say, that learning curve, I think, that every finance team needs to do in terms of knowing more about the business and not about accounting. Yeah.
So in terms of skill set, so a good example of our team is, I think I added this up recently, that in the last sort of 2.5, 3 years that I've been in the team, 11 people have left the finance team to go and work on other parts of Kainos, right? That's not leaving Kainos. That's people who are going to work on other parts of Kainos. Now, maybe we are slightly unique in that, but my interpretation of that is that, as you have said, it's business understanding. It's people coming in, understanding how the business works, and then applying that in another role within Kainos, like whether it's an operational role or a management role somewhere else in the business. I think that's a really good testimony of, if you have a finance team that is just adding up numbers, then you're not going to get those opportunities. You know, you're not going to have skills that are applicable elsewhere. So that's a good example in terms of what sort of skills we like to focus on. So to me, it's more about having that ability to sort of try and break systems, right? In the past, finance people, maybe this is a stereotype, but you like posting journals, right? You didn't necessarily like designing how a report should work, or, you know, you didn't like to, you always had someone in technology or an IT department who sorted out your new ledgers or things like that there. Workday's very intuitive. You know, it's if and formulas, you know, condition rule sets that are very easy to interpret if you're not strong from a technology point of view. And I can say that because I'm not, and I picked it up. So I think in terms of the skill set you need, you do not need to be highly sort of IT technical. You just need to have that sort of mindset where you're happy to get your hands dirty with a new system, and then you really understand the nuts and bolts of it. And probably the last thing on that is we as a team try and hire now personalities rather than CVs. So I'm very conscious now that because we have made those efficiencies or continuous improvements, and we continue to do that, I need people in the team who are confident partnering the business. And that's not just at a senior level, that is at an entry level. They need to be able to interact with the business. So I don't want people who are naturally introvert and, and shy and want to just post numbers or transactions. I want people who are happy to answer questions and really work with the business. So it's a slightly different answer to your question, but I think the job in finance on our team is a little bit more interesting maybe than it would have been 5 years ago, because you're able now to have those conversations and spend time with the business, which in my opinion is far more interesting than just, like I say, making the numbers add up.
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago, I was talking to one of our customers, and the head of finance said, Christina, she said, Workday is a playful system. It's not around the system itself. It's interpreting and analyzing the results that you are getting out pretty easy. So the business knowledge was getting more and more important rather than, let's say, the system usage and the accounting knowledge, right? And they made this shift because they have a high automation rate of standard transactions, right? So it doesn't matter for them in what countries they are working. It doesn't matter where they are working, right? And what countries they are closing books in, because this is highly standardized. But this business knowledge was becoming more and more important because they need to understand how to support the business, right? And I think I made a personal experience there as well. I was leading a data scientist team back in my IBM days, right? And it was always around finding that great algorithm that predicts the future, right? But if you don't understand the business, data gets you nowhere, right? And that was let's say a stellar learning curve for the team as well, that they need first to understand the business of the customers and before thinking about an algorithm that they could put in place, right? So
and that's some of the, sorry, just to that point, I mean, I'm quite fortunate in that I get the chance to speak to existing Workday customers or new prospects just from all shapes and sizes, and they tend to ask, how does Workday work for you? And it's that nice ability they tell me a little bit about their business, and I can see straight away how they could use Workday and break down some of the challenges they've had from old legacy systems that maybe aren't as flexible or scalable or multi-dimensional, in terms of the reporting. So it's nice. It's almost a nice part of consulting almost that I get on the side, as well as opportunities like this.
Yeah. Maybe to round it up, Matt, we have discussed what let's say, the past couple of years have done to, let's say, the role change of finance of the CFO, right? And I think we agree both on, let's say, the last 18 months as being an accelerator for this, let's say, journey that we as finance guys have been already on since many years, right? So maybe hopefully that will end in a couple of months for, let's say, after everybody gets his vaccination or her vaccination, right? So I think numbers are promising, but I see at least here for Germany, right? So fingers crossed for summer.
Yeah.
what is the next topic for you as a finance organization, or for you as, let's say, the head of finance? What's on your radar for, let's say, the time after?
Yeah, so I mean, probably a more general topic for me in finance is we've grown, we are continuing to grow very fast and in diverse nature. To me, it's almost an inflection point where I kind of want to focus on standardization now. So we've got, we're people in probably 20 countries right now, and we've got two main parts of our business that have different reporting requirements with different currencies. There's a lot of things that have just grown, and Workday has been able to handle it. So we haven't said no to anything. And to me, to allow us to take Kainos to the next level, it's about focusing on just standardization and optimization. So not saying yes to every request, but to apply that sort of consulting mindset and saying, well, why do you need this information? Why do you want to store this data or record this data? So it's about moving finance away from being, yes, we can do everything for you, to actually that next level of, well, I'm hearing what you need, and this is what I think is going to work for you, and allowing us to scale efficiently. So, we're 2,000 people today. How do we get to 4,000 or beyond? We're not going to be able to just scale in line with the business. We have to be efficient. So that sort of data management, reporting, standardization, that sort of space is probably my next big longer term ambition within the team. So excited about that, because hopefully we've now got adaptive planning. We are going live with Workday PSA very soon. We've got HCM, we've got financials. So we're going to have one platform to do all the reporting out of. But with all that data, if you don't use it right, it can become a problem. So it's about standardizing and getting the most out of it. So that's definitely my next big objective, really, as a team.
The next baby.
The next, yeah. Sleepless nights.
Yes. So I think to everybody who dialed in and listened in today, I think we heard a great story of financial transformation being a reality, and let's say something that is real and not just on paper, on slides, and something that, let's say, really exists, right? So thank you for sharing that with us, Matthew, today. I really appreciate spending the time with us. I think even in these busy days and busy times, right? So thanks again for making the effort. I think great story. Greatly told, right? So I think there's more to come on, let's say, for you and for Kainos. PSA is a great thing to have, I think, right?
Well, very
thank
excited.
you.
Very excited about what's going to happen next. So, and Frank, if any of the attendees want to contact me, I'm more than happy for that to happen.
Perfect. Thank you for that offer. Right. So, guys, I think that was a good, a really interesting conversation with Matthew McManus, the head of finance from Kainos. We're going to take it to the next round on the 15th of June with a great participation from Deloitte. They are releasing their next results of their CFO survey study. And we are going to talk with one of their partners around the results based on this new study they have released, I think, a couple of weeks ago. So great stuff, great content. I think a couple of best practices to share. For now, thank you again, Matthew, and looking forward to see all of you hopefully someday in real time. So bye for now.
Look forward to it. Bye.